everybody, and welcome to our first in the series of Food with the First Lady, Small Steps to a Healthier You. For the past 2 years, I have been making sourdough bread, and that's what I'm going to share with you guys today. I'm excited to do this, very, very excited, because I love making sourdough bread. Now, this is not the sweet sourdough bread that many have come to think of as sourdough bread. This is a fermented bread, much like what some people refer to as San Francisco sourdough bread or French bread or something like that. It's very healthy, and everything that we're using is organic, and this bread only consists of flour, water, and a little bit of salt, and that is it. So I'm going to take you through the steps. Now, there are 5 steps, so we'll do each one individually. And, of course, time elapses between each, but I'll try to explain how that works. It's really a 2-day process to make sourdough bread because it's fermented. Now, because it's fermented, it means it has probiotic properties, and it's great for your gut health. You can look up sourdough and see all the benefits of it, and that and other fermented foods are so great for you. But this is what we eat at our house now, and we love it, especially with toast. So anyway, here it is. The first thing we do is we will take our starter. Now let's talk about that a minute. I made this starter from scratch. I made it with flour, unbleached, organic, all-purpose flour, and water. So I did that. I put flour and water together. Then I discarded. I forgot to bring my discard. Then I discarded, fed it again. It took 3 weeks every day of feeding water and flour to this starter to make it mature enough where it would make bread. What happens is it brings in yeast from the air. Now, how that happens, I do not know. But this is just plain old starter, and it's not bubbly. It's just cold, but it has little bacteria in there that need to be fed. So we're going to feed our starter to make it mature so we can make bread. So let's imagine that I just took this starter, which like I said, I've had going for 2 years. I think about people in covered wagons. This is the way before yeast was even found in that you could dry and you can buy packets of it, they use this kind of a starter. So I pulled this out of the refrigerator, let's imagine. Now I have to feed it. I have to feed it at least as much flour and water as is in here so it can eat that and bubble up and be able to leaven my bread. So I'm going to feed it right now. So I see how much is in there. Now, there are lots of videos on social media or online telling you there's a 1-to-1 ratio. In other words, I could measure this and say, okay, that's 20 grams. So I'm going to add 20 grams of flour and 20 grams of water, so on and so forth. I don't do that. I just eyeball it. You can't put too much in there. You know, the Bible says a little leaven leavens the whole loaf. A little leaven, this is leaven, the starter's leaven, leavens a lot. You just have to let it rise longer. I use filtered water. They say that if you use tap water, it has chemicals in it that you don't want, and they may inhibit the growth of your starter, and I just don't want to do that. So everything we're doing in this, we're going to use everything organic, the best that we can find. So I've just got spring water here, not distilled, but spring. So I'm going to dump that in here. I don't know if you can see that. I'm taking a wooden spoon, and you'll notice this is in a glass container. According to what I understand, natural materials are what you should use. That's what's best. This is natural wood. This is natural glass and ceramic. So that's all we're going to be using to make this bread. All right, so I'm stirring this up. Actually, this is an old jar. This is not even a canning jar. You can use whatever you have. This is what I have. And I'm going to mix this up until it is the texture of thick pancake syrup. Now online, you'll see all kinds of thicknesses. Some like it to be real thin. Some people will mix it up, and it's real thick, and that's okay. But what I do is to the consistency of thick pancake batter. So That's the way mine looks. Now, it's not bubbly or anything like that because it has not matured. So I'm going to set this out. And I don't usually I use a little rubber thing. I'll show you later. But I want this to breathe. Now, I don't want any bacteria to get in there, any more bacteria than the beneficial bacteria. I don't want any mold to get in there, any bugs to get in there or dirt or anything. So I'm going to cover it, but I'm going to leave it where it can breathe. All right? So now I've fed my starter. I'm going to wait until it matures and it bubbles up. It may double, it may not, and it's bubbly on the top. And then I will mix my dough. So that's the end of the first session. I fed my starter. Let's move on now to making the dough. Ready? Step number 1, feed your starter. Step number 2, the starter is mature. Now let's look here at the starter. The starter is now bubbly. It has come up this high it was like this high in my jar. Now it's come this high, and it's bubbly. It's light and airy. It has fed on the flour and water I gave it. So we're ready to make our dough. All right. So what we have here is a scale. And I'm going to measure this according to grams. Now, why do we do that? Why don't we just measure out cups and half cups or whatever? And that is to get a more exact measurement. Because if I were to put a cup on here and fill it with flour and I would level it off, well, some might be leveled like that. Some might be indented. That would be a different measure. Some might be packy. It might be loose. So in order to get an exact measurement so that my bread always turns out well, I'm going to use a scale. So I've got it set on grams. So I'm going to put my bread bowl on here. Now, I just got to tell you about this bread bowl. So my bread bowl, I learned to make bread, regular yeast bread, when I was in high school. My piano teacher, she milled her own flour. She did everything from scratch. And she gave me this bread bowl, and she taught me how to make bread. Now, that was a different kind of bread, but I just always remember her. While I'm talking about people, let me just say my daughter gave me this in my sourdough apron, which my daughter Suzanne gave this to me. So I'm wearing this in her honor today. And also, we're going to mill some flour in a minute. My daughter Lauren gave me this a couple years ago, and I've enjoyed making whole wheat. So we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, moving on. Here we go. All right, I'm going to put that on there. I'm going to take my all-purpose, organic, unbleached flour. I'm going to do 500 grams. Now, this is going to make 2 loaves. All right, so I've got a little bit more than I need in there. I guess that's just, you don't have to be exact. Now, I put in the cookbook that you could use any flour. You could use all-purpose. You could use all bread. You could use all whole wheat. But I like to use a mixture of all of them. Okay, now moving on to my food mill. All right, so I buy wheat berries. Now, I buy them, the first time I ever bought them, I bought them in this little small container. Like, this is what, 3 pounds. But then I quickly moved to the 25-pound tub. And so that's what I use now. These wheat berries just look like this. You can actually cook wheat berries. But that's what they look like. You can just buy whole wheat from the store if you want to use whole wheat in your bread. This is just what I use. I have started making for myself 100% whole wheat because it has the bran included in it and it's better for you, but it's a denser loaf. So when I make bread to give to somebody, I put some whole wheat in it, but I don't use all whole wheat. And another thing is if you mill your own, it's better for you because the minute you start milling it, it breaks down that outside fiber, which is good for you. But then it starts losing its potency. So like the whole wheat flour that you buy from the store is not going to be as good for you as milling your own. So I'm going to mill. It's going to be loud for just a second. So give me just a second. All right, here we go. While that's doing, I'm going to go ahead and put 250 grams of unbleached bread flour. Unbleached. So I'm going to put 250 grams of this. We're going good here. It's almost through. There are 3 settings on my meal. We can go pastry, bread, or coarse. If I were doing popcorn and making cornbread, I'd go coarse. But I'm milling this, we're on the bread setting. There are all kinds of grain mills that you can buy. This one Lauren gave me I love because it fits in my cabinet. It's not so tall that it won't fit into my cabinet, so I can put it away. All right, so let's see what it looks like. There you go. That's amazing. So let's put some healthy grains in here. Let's go 200 grams now of the whole wheat. There you go. All right, so I'm going to set this aside now. Like I said, this is going to start losing its potency or whatever because I've already broken down the bran. So I'm going to put this in a bag, the rest of this in a bag, and I'll put it in the freezer and we'll use it another time. Okay, so that's all the flour. All right, so now I'm going to put water, 650 grams of water. So I come back to my spring water, and I am going to measure out 650 grams. All right, got 650 grams of water. Okay, now I'm going to put this water on top of the flour. Now, some people do what they call an auto lease at this point. So now we're going to measure out, let me tear out my scale, and we're going to measure out 20 grams of flour, of salt. All right, there's my 20 grams of salt. That's the last thing. And now we're going to measure out our starter. Now, the starter is going to be foamy. It is great. That starter is in great shape. So we're going to do 200 grams of starter. And we'll get as close to all these measurements as possible. It's really hard to get it right on the dot. Let's see what this is going to be. That's going to be 213. We're just going to call that it. And dump the starter in. Now, some people, when they make sourdough, they mix up their water and their starter together first, and then they add it to their flour. That's not what I do, but you could do that. This is what I put, this is what I keep on my starter so that it's not completely covered. So it can, well, it's completely covered, but you can still get some from the air. Okay, and now my salt. Now this is, what is this? This is sea salt. At home, sometimes I use the sea salt, sometimes I use the Himalayan pink salt. You can use whichever, but something natural is best. All right, now I go in with my hands. I used to go in with a dough hook. I don't do that anymore because it would initially, you know, it would initially mix things up, but then when it got hard to stir, then it's not going to do anything. So I have to use my hands anyway, so I'm like, just going to go in from the beginning with my hands. I enjoy this because it feels like the dough's alive. So anyway, that's a lot of fun for me. So I'm going to go around and around and around till I clear, so I can clear the bowl. Now it says, the instructions to this say you should do this for 5 minutes, and I used to do that. I used to knead, well, I call this kneading it. I used to knead it for like 5 minutes. I don't do that anymore because I couldn't tell the difference between me doing this for 5 minutes and me not doing it for 5 minutes. And I'm just too impatient of a person. I'm like, I'm not standing for 5 minutes. So here I go. I'm just going to make sure that I feel like all the starter is incorporated into that dough. So that's what I'm going to do. So I think that's about ready. All right, now I'm going to get all that good stuff off of my hands as much as I can, because that's going to be another slice. If you look at it that way, everything is on my hands. All right, now you could cover it with various things. I have here, right behind me, well, I think I'll use this. All right, I have a towel. All right, I'm going to take my towel, I'm going to wet it. Now, this has got to be covered. If not, it's going to dry out. Okay, this is just an old towel. It's fine, it's clean. That's what I generally do. Now, you could cover it with plastic wrap, but see, plastic wrap is plastic, and plastic is not really good for you. So I don't want to cover it with plastic. I could put a plate over it if I had a plate that was big enough, but usually I just use a wet towel. Now, why is it wet? It's wet because it will mold to this and cover all this up. It won't just hang and let air get into it. So this is going to sit for 30 minutes. And then I'm going to begin my stretch and folds. And the stretch and folds will be the next session. All right. So now we have fed our starter, and then we waited till it was mature, which is 4 to 6, 8 hours, depending on how warm your house is or wherever it is you're making it. Then our starter was mature, and so we measured out all of our flour and our water and our salt, and we mixed it up with our hands. Now, what we have to do then is we let it rest for 30 minutes, and we begin a series of stretch and folds. Now, this dough that I have here, I made a while ago, and it's ready. It has been stretched and folded a couple times, and I'm going to stretch and fold it again to show you how to stretch and fold. It's just what it says. It's a stretch. You grab the edge of it and fold. Turn a quarter of a turn, stretch, and fold. Turn a quarter of a turn, stretch, and fold. Quarter of a turn, stretch, and fold. Now I'm going to do this 12 times. Look at the gluten, how the gluten is developing in that. When I first started, if I could go back to that other one, if I had time to go back, you would see how it's not nearly this strong. Look how strong that is. So I'm going to do this 12 times. Now, after I make my dough, I let it sit for 30 minutes. Then I start my stretch and folds. After 30 minutes, I do one. And then 15 minutes later, three times, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes, I stretch and fold. Then for the next 30 minutes, I go 30 minutes stretch and fold, another 30 stretch and fold, another 30 stretch and fold. You're going like from the time you feed your starter till you finish the stretch and folds, it's going to be like 2.5 or 3 hours. This is why if someone gives you sourdough bread, they say, oh, it's a labor of love. It is, because it's a lot involved in it. Okay, so I've gone 12 times around my bowl. I cover it back up with my wet towel, and now I'm going to move on to the next thing. This bread doesn't look anything like this one. Look at the difference. This has not been proofed. This one has rested for like 6 hours, and it has almost doubled in size. Look how smooth this one looks as opposed to this one. This one now has proofed on the counter, not in the refrigerator, for 6 or 8 hours. Now it depends on how warm your house is or whatever, how long it takes. But look at this. Look. Look at there. It's kind of like Santa Claus's belly. Ho, ho, ho. There you go. All right. There we go. Whatever. I like to use this to get everything out. They say that if you I don't put any flour on my surface, that if you can pour it out, and if it doesn't stick, it's ready. So here we go. We'll see if it'll all come out. I'm taking a chance here. Look at there. Look at there. Look at there, Raleigh. Look at that. Look at that right there. Yay, success. I've got a couple of things on the edge there. All right. Look at that. Beautiful bread. All right, that's going to make 2 loaves. Here we go, guys. Let's cut it in half. I just love to make it because it just feels alive to me. Okay. Now, the reason that I do not put any flour, because flour would make it slide, And it's got to have some tension in order to rise. So I'm going to spread it out. We'll do this. Start with this one. People have all kinds of different shaping methods on how to shape your sourdough bread. I just do what I do. I'm stretching it, creating tension, bring it back on itself, and then I'm going to roll it up, bring it to myself, create a smooth ball. I'm dragging it. I'm going to go slower. I'm dragging it against the counter. All right? I'll bring it over here so I can do this next one. There's one. All right, now, see the difference in these two. All right, let's do the second one. Stretch, bring it out, fold over. I'm pulling and folding. Pull, fold, pull, fold. If you look at there. You look online, people do it all kinds of different ways. I'm dragging it to create tension. It pulls. You can see some of the bubbles. Okay. Now, at this point, what I would do would be to let this sit for 15 minutes for it to kind of develop a little skin on it. I don't have time to do that today, but let's pretend that we have let it sit for 15 minutes. It's time to put it in the bannetons. This is called a batard because it is oval. This is called a boule, B-O-U-L-E, because it is round. I bought these especially for this. These are linen liners that will keep the bread from sticking. Now, some people, if you see the graphic that was made for this Food with the First Lady, it shows a loaf with the round circles on it. But I don't do that. I line mine with this because I don't want it to stick. But you don't have to line it, but I do. I'm going to need a couple of Walmart sacks. If we've got them. If we don't, we'll do something else. Okay, so there I've got my two ready. All right, now in this bag I have rice flour. I took regular white rice and I put it through my mill over there. And I made myself some rice flour. Now, why am I doing rice flour? Because rice flour will not absorb itself into my sourdough. That is made with wheat flour. The rice flour will not absorb, and we'll be able to see it when I score it, and I'll show you more about that later. All right, so we're going to turn that over, and we'll just get those out of the refrigerator, and I'm going to do my final shaping. So I turn this over after 15 minutes, and we will spread it out, and I'm going to go shape again. So I'm going to pull it out and up, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, and over. Oh, it's beautiful. And I'm going to make it, this is going to be your top. And then I'm going to put it into my banneton. And then I'm going to sew it. So I'm going to try to create as much tension as possible. There's one. Here's the other one. So I'll spread it out. Pull this, and this, roll it up. Now this one's a different shape. This one's an oval. So I'm going to do this one like this into an oval. Turn it upside down, put it in there, sew it. And then I put it in the refrigerator for 12 to 14 hours. Now I'm going to the refrigerator. Y'all can look at the bread while I'm gone. And I'm going to get the ones that I previously made, and we'll go from there. So this is what I'm going to do. These that I just took out of the refrigerator used to be these. So let's replace that. Just came out of the refrigerator. This one's going into the refrigerator. All right. The reason that I put it in a plastic bag is to retain moisture, because the moisture is going to make my dough rise. So this is my one just came out of the fridge. This one's the one I'm putting into the fridge. Okay, so I'm going to get one of the guys here to stick these two things in the fridge. So these are ready to go to the refrigerator, and we can let them sit there for 12 to 14 hours to continue to ferment. Remember, this is a fermented bread. It'll continue to ferment for 12 to 14 hours, or you can leave it for 2 or 3 days. The longer you leave it, the sourer it'll get. And now, these have just come out of the refrigerator. They were made yesterday. They've been in the refrigerator for 12 to 14 hours, and we're ready to bake them. We have 2 Dutch ovens set to 500 degrees over there in our oven, and we are going to put these in there. Now, this, of course, is a piece of parchment paper. We're going to do one on parchment paper, and then we're going to do the other on a bread sling that I use. I didn't order those. Suzanne gave those to me, and so it's easier for me to use that. But before I got those, I used just parchment paper, so we're going to use that because that's easily accessible. I'm going to put some rice flour on that first, and then I'm going to take my bread and I'm going to lay it on here to score. All right. Now, Tiffany always helps us with this, and she gave me this. She didn't know she was giving me a little sifter, but this is my little sifter that I use to put the rice flour on the top because I want to score it and I want the pattern to stand out. Because it's rice flour, it won't soak into my bread at all, and so wherever I score will show up and the rest will be white. All right. So you'd use a lame. Now, it's spelled L-A-M-E. It looks like lame, but it's actually called a lame. And a razor blade fits on this lame. I don't like to use it, and then you score it. But I don't like to use that. I'm showing it to you because you can buy a kit with this on it, and if you like it, that's good. It's easier for me just to use my hands. So if you don't score it, it's an expansion score. So if you don't, you got to have it because the bread is going to rise. Hopefully it'll rise. And then it will burst if you don't score it. So you score it where you want it to open up. So we're going to make, in this one, I'm going to make a side score, a big expansion score, and I'm going to do what they call a wheat pattern. All right? And we'll see how it comes out. All right, there's one. This one, I'm just going to do just a cross in, and I'm just going to do some little slits in the side, just making something up because that I'm not real good at it. Okay, so we're going to come over here, and I'm going to go get my Dutch ovens out of the stove. I'm going to bring them here, and we're going to load them up. So here we go. I just better get them both. Have y'all got me off? All right. We got to do this quick because I don't want to lose any. Can I get somebody to come over here and open this when I come back to open that? All right, here we go. We do this as quickly as possible. We don't want to lose any heat. Here's one. There's the batard. Oh, by the way, so this is a Dutch oven that Aaron and Christy gave me. What would I be without my family? And then here is the boule, B-O-U-L-E. Now, let me stick it in and then we'll talk some more. Let me stick this in. All right. Okay, we're going to go 20 minutes with the lid on. Now, the reason we leave the lid on is so that the moisture that's in that bread will collect and come back into it, and it will have what they call an oven spring. Some people will throw in a couple ice cubes in there, or some people will spray it with water. But I don't do that. I just stick it in there just like that. So we'll go 20 minutes with the lid on. Then we'll open it up. We'll turn it down to 475, and we'll go 20 minutes with the lid on. And I'll meet you back then, and we'll see what it looks like coming out of the oven. Guys, we have made our sourdough bread, and actually this bread, I didn't make it today. It's not fresh. I made it the other day and I froze it specifically for this because it's really best to make croutons with stale bread. So I'm cutting, this is a whole loaf of the artisan bread that I made earlier. Well, one like it anyway. And I'm cutting it into 3/4 of an inch pieces to make some croutons. Could not be easier. All right, so here we go. We're going to put them all in a bowl. The hardest thing about this recipe is cutting up this bread. So I'm telling you, it's hard. The outside is very crusty. So I used an electric knife to cut most of it up. And the last little part that you just saw me do, I used a big serrated knife to cut that up. All right, there it is. There it is. There's my bread. All right, I'm just going to sprinkle it with olive oil. That's 1/4 cup. I'm going to go ahead and stir that in before it soaks into those top pieces I just put it on. I want it to be on all of them. And then I'm using some organics herbes de Provence. And you could use Italian seasoning if you didn't have this or didn't like this. I personally think Italian seasoning is just a little harsh for me. So I use this herbes de Provence. So I didn't want to just sprinkle it on the top because I didn't want it to only be on the top ones. So I sprinkled a little bit, then stirred it, then sprinkled a little bit more. And then also a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. All right, here we go. All right, this is ready. Now I've got a parchment paper lined cookie sheet or whatever. I'm gonna get all of that good seasoning in there. I'm gonna put this in a 350-degree oven, and I'm gonna bake it for 15-20 minutes until it is nice and crispy. I'm gonna check it about halfway through. I probably need to stir it so that every bit of it can get crispy, and then we'll enjoy it with our salad. Hey guys, we are back and we are ready to make some spaghetti sauce. The reason we chose to make spaghetti sauce today is because it goes well with our sourdough bread. So that's what we're going to do. We've got our olive oil here that we put into our pot. Now remember, olive, avocado, and coconut are the best oils for your body. Today we're using olive oil because of the taste of it in this spaghetti sauce. So I've got that, the olive oil, and I'm going to put in there 1 onion. Now, while this onion is cooking, we're going to let the onion cook. And garlic, let's see, where's the garlic? Here it is. We can use garlic powder or granulated garlic. Or this is granulated garlic, what am I saying? Or minced garlic. So we'll just let that cook. And while that's cooking, I want to talk to you about something. This is not the way I make spaghetti sauce, okay? Ricky has a garden. All our married life, we've had a garden. All his life, he had a garden. I did not growing up. But his mom and dad always had a garden, and of course Ricky always had to work it. And then when we married, we began to eat things out of the garden. Years ago, someone gave me a recipe for spaghetti sauce, for canned, jarred spaghetti sauce. Now, this is a jar of tomatoes. This is not a jar of spaghetti sauce. And I should have brought one. When I teach the class, I'm going to bring one to give away. But I make spaghetti sauce every summer. And it starts with a half a bushel of tomatoes. And it calls for a bunch of other stuff. And when I make it, it takes me all day to make it. And let me turn this down. And I then put it in cans, and I process it, and we eat that all winter long. We have 4 children, and for each of the children, I try to do 6 to 12 jars because they love it and I love it. Why? Because spaghetti sauce you can use for a spaghetti, obviously, and if it's in a jar, you don't have to thaw it out like it's not in the freezer. It's not taking up freezer space. And you can just dump it. You get home from work and you're like, I'm too tired to fix anything, but I ain't got the money to eat out. Hey, what am I going to do? You just cook up some meat if you like meat in it. If you don't put it in there. And you pour it in with your spaghetti sauce. You dump it in there. By the time the pasta's done, your spaghetti sauce is done. Well, for this class, I wanted the same taste as the spaghetti sauce that I make. So I took the recipe and I adapted it for one recipe's worth of spaghetti sauce. And so this is actually my spaghetti sauce, but it's not the canned one that I make. Uh-oh, I turned this off. It is just enough for one. So hang in there with me, and we are going to make this. All right. Okay. So I've got my onion cooking in here. I'm going to saute it down until it is tender. There's garlic in here as well. I had garlic powder today, or you can use, like I say, regular garlic or minced out of a jar. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing that I'm going to add, if you wanted to add a green pepper, if you like green peppers, or even if you like hot peppers, you could go ahead and put that in there. Okay, then what I would do if I were making it, these are tomatoes from our garden that I can, and what I would do, I would take these tomatoes, and what I did when I was formulating the recipe, I would pop the top open. I take a knife, a sharp knife. I stick it in there, and these are like tomato chunks. That's the way I put them up. And I would just, since they're already cooked and soft, I would just break them up, and then I would dump them in there. But I wanted to formulate this recipe for people who don't have access to that. So we are using, this is a 32. This is a quart. This is 32 ounces. This is what you can buy at the store, and sizes have shrunk. So this is a 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. Now, if it were me, I would use crushed, or you could use whole and break them up like I broke those up. And we're going to let those cook for a little bit. And let me make sure that's right. We're going to let that cook for a little minute, and then we'll be back in just a minute. We had our oil, we cooked our onion and garlic in that, and I added 2 of these cans. This is crushed tomatoes, but you can add any kind of tomatoes you want to, and I brought it to a boil. And now I'm ready to add the other ingredients. So we're going to go with, in order to make it nice and thick, we're going to go with the organic tomato paste. All right, I'm going to put that in there. It calls for a 12-ounce can, which is bigger than this one. This is 6 ounces, but this is what we were able to find today. So we're going to add 2 of this 6 ounce to make 12 ounces of organic tomato paste. All right, we're going to put that in there. Then we're going to add, we've got organic basil leaves. Now, if you have basil, you need to add the fresh. I do if I have it. Sometimes One time somebody gave me some basil and it wasn't time to make this. Also, you have to add salt, and I add a little bit of sugar. If you don't like sugar in your spaghetti sauce, don't add it. But I find this is just a 1/4 cup of sugar. This is organic sugar. Now, you could use some honey, but I find that if you use just a little bit, it cuts the acidity. And so to me, it's good. Now this is going to have to cook for a while. So I'm going to stir everything in because you want that onion to be nice and married with the rest of those flavors. You want the garlic and the basil to be nice and married with those flavors. So I'm going to let that sit. I've cooked over here some ground meat. Now you could add ground beef. You could add nothing. Or you could add ground beef, ground turkey, ground chicken, ground Italian sausage to this. But today what we have is 93% fat-free or no antibiotic, good for you turkey, ground turkey. That's what we have in here. Now I'm going to turn this down and I'm going to put the lid on it, and while I cook the pasta and do everything else, we're going to let this cook and simmer, and it's going to be great. All right, guys. All right, we are going to make now our pasta. We got to have salty water for our pasta. We're using the sea salt. And you use whatever pasta you like. If you like linguine, use that. This is spaghetti, and so that's what we're using, obviously. Now, you don't have to break it up. I just break mine in half. I don't want to cut it too small, but then again, I don't want to have a huge long piece, but you do, however you like it. If you don't like spaghetti, if you want to use linguine, hey, you could even use macaroni, whatever you like. We're going to let that cook till it's al dente. Let me bring that back to a boil, and while that is boiling, we're going to move on to our Alfredo sauce. Listen, I shouldn't say never, but let me set my watch. Hey, Siri, set a timer for 8 minutes. We're going to go. All right, it's going to work. We're going to go 8 minutes on our pasta, and we're going to get this done in that amount of time. I'm sure. So, this Alfredo sauce, I would never eat, as I said, Alfredo sauce in a jar. I cannot imagine all the junk that would be in that, and we are doing healthy. So this is organic butter, and we are going to let the butter melt slowly with the cream. This is organic cream, again, not half and half, not whole milk. This is why there are a lot of calories in it, and that's true, but they are healthy. They probably have a lot of calories in them. Now we're going to let this slowly melt. Now we are not going to bring it to a boil. We are not going to try to do it quickly. We're going to take our time and let this slowly warm, the butter and the cream. I always do mine in a skillet like this, so it has a bigger surface on the bottom. And then all we're going to do to that later is we're going to add the Parmesan cheese. Now, you can buy Parmesan cheese in a shaker. I had one around here, but we're not using that. Now, if I were at home and I was a young mother and I had children around me hollering and screaming, and all I had was a shaker, a green shaker, or Parmesan cheese, I would use it. But I have the real thing today, and it is better. One thing I don't like about that other cheese, it also has some additives in it, that dry shaker cheese. The other kind of Parmesan cheese you could use is already shredded. You can buy that in the store in a container, a plastic container. We could have used that. But just like any other shredded cheese, it has cornstarch in it to keep the shreds from sticking to one another. So what we did was we bought some real, quote unquote, real Parmesan cheese. This is not Parmesan Romano. This is just straight up Parmesan cheese. It says it was aged 10 months and it came in a block like this. So that's what we're using. And what I did, I took, y'all, this is an old grater. I don't know if they do these anymore. I think either I got this when I married, it was Mother's. Ooh, I got to turn this down. It's not warming. It's trying to get a little too hot. So I grated it on the small side, the Parmesan cheese, and I came up with this. All right. So I've got it down, out of 10, I'm turning it down to 2. And I'm going to add this Parmesan cheese, and we're just going to melt it. Now remember, this is finely grated. I used the fine grating side of my grater, and I'm just going to stir it in. Let it melt, and basically it's done, guys. I mean, there's no cooking it. There's no flour in here to cook, to try to get it done. There is nothing in here but heavy cream, organic heavy cream, butter, and real Parmesan cheese. I'm going to add. Now you could put garlic in here if you wanted to. If you wanted to add some parsley in there to create a little color, you could. I'm not going to add much salt because cheese is salty enough. This is done. That's it. So I'm just going to turn it off. Let me see if I can turn it off. All right, we're going to turn that off. When our pasta gets done, we're going to pour it through the colander, and we will have Alfredo sauce. We'll have our spaghetti sauce, and we'll have pasta. So we'll see you at the table. Guys, I am not a chocolate cake fan, chocolate cake with chocolate icing, until I made this sourdough discard chocolate cake. It is moist and so fabulous. We love it. Okay, let's talk about discard. Okay, this is my sourdough starter. But when you feed your starter and your starter matures, you use it. Well, there's always some left. So I have some left over here. Then before I feed it again, I've got to discard some. I have a jar of discard, which is just inactive starter in my refrigerator. This is made with either sourdough starter discard, or it could be made with mature sourdough starter. So that's what I'm going to use this for. So first we have to make what I'm calling the sponge, but basically it's the part you mix up the flour, the coconut oil, this is organic, the filtered water, the spring water, and the sourdough discard, and you let it sit for, you don't have to let it sit, but if you want the probiotic qualities where it's fermented, you can let it sit for up to 24 hours. So we're going to mix that up first. So here we go. I've got my 2 cups of the organic, unbleached, all-purpose flour in here. We're going to add a 1/2 cup of the coconut oil. You can buy this, anywhere around home. It is the organic coconut oil, so we're going to get it, put that in there. You do not have to melt it. I used to think you did when I first made this, but you really don't have to. So we're putting the coconut, so we use that instead of butter or oil because it's much better for you. So that, then we're going to have, you're going to use the same cup, 1/2 cup for your sourdough discard. And we're going to use our wooden spoon to get that out of there. I wish I had a gram measurement for this. I don't, so we're just going to eyeball it. So that's going to go in. Let me see here. Get every bit of that out of there because that's what's going to help me to ferment this to make it better on me. It does have sugar in it, but it's going to make it better than it would have been without. And then 1 cup of the filtered water, okay? I love this thing. This is called a Danish dough whisk. I use it for all kinds of things. And it's good to mix this up because your coconut oil, remember we didn't melt it, so it was kind of semi-solid. So I'm going to mix it till I've got everything, all of my flour incorporated into the wet ingredients. And it's going to be like a loose dough. And you're going to be, what is this? Trust me, it's going to work out. Okay, this is it. That's what it is. Okay, now I'm going to cover it. I've got a towel over here, but I don't think this is going to be big enough. But anyway, I'd get a towel that was big enough. And I would cover it or with something where it would not get dry. And then you can let this sit. You can use it right now. Or you can let it sit for up to 24 hours for it to ferment so that you can get those probiotic qualities. So let's do that. We're going to let it sit, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to finish up our chocolate cake. Okay, guys, we mixed up what I'm calling the sponge, and here it is. This is flour, the organic flour, unbleached, the organic, no, not that, but the organic coconut oil, filtered water, and the sourdough discard. All right, I made this yesterday. So this has been sitting for almost 24 hours. So that's my sponge. All right, we're going to first put in here our dry ingredients, which is going to be 3/4 of a cup of the organic baking cocoa. So there's that. All right, we're going to put in our salt, sea salt, and our sugar. All right, this sugar is organic cane sugar. You can see that it's not quite white. It's not been bleached. We're trying to be as healthy as possible, even though we are using sugar. All right, we're going to mix those up just briefly. The dry ingredients, I'm just going to do it just a little bit. Okay. Then we're going to do our eggs. These are brown eggs. Actually, these are eggs I got from a friend of mine who has chickens. We know that the brown eggs or the pasture-raised chickens are going to lay better eggs. Look how yellow that yolk is. These are all better for you. Have no antibiotics in them or anything like that. So we're going to put in our eggs. There goes our eggs. We're going to add our milk, 1 cup of whole milk. We're going to save our baking soda till later. We're going to put in our vanilla. Now we buy vanilla, this is Mexican vanilla. We buy it, that's a glass container, not plastic. That's the way I buy it, just like that. And then we're going to put our sponge in. Look at there. Look at that. Look at that beautiful. Look at the beautiful holes in that. That's amazing. Guys, I'm just telling you. Look at there. Look at there. Look at this. And this is a cake now. A cake that you don't have to feel bad about eating. Now, true, I admit it, as I said earlier, it does have sugar in it. Organic cane sugar. But a cake is a cake is a cake, and what's a birthday without a cake? So if you're going to have a treat, we're trying to make it as healthy as possible. So in here goes the rest of those ingredients. I'm going to turn it on. And while it's going, I'm going to show you how I do my pans. So they're kind of special to me. I don't even know if you can buy them like this anymore. The bottom comes out. But what I do with my pans is on the bottom of them, I line them with wax paper. So I'll just show you what I do. I'm going to do 2 at one time. I guess you do what your mom did. This is what Mother did. So there's my base. And I had some scissors out here. And I'm trying to see what I did with my scissors. And I don't know what they are, so I'm just going to get another pair. I just open them up like this. And I score the base to my cake pans. Now I'm going to cut what I scored. If I couldn't take out the base, I would just set the whole pan, cake pan on here, and I would just trace around it like I did. Uh-oh, I'm not going through 2 levels there. Let me go back. It's like cutting a pattern and missing both the 2. All right, I'm almost through. All right, we're going to get all this together. I've never had a cake stick with this. All right, we're going to use this avocado oil spray. You can also use olive oil spray. They carry that at the store. We'll put that in there first to make sure the sides don't stick. All right, let's do the other one. Now we're going to put the wax paper in the bottom. All right, and lastly to this, we're going to add our baking soda. Baking soda is in a little container right there. Here we go. And mix that together well. I do not know why the recipe calls for adding the baking soda last. I just have no idea. But it does, so that's what we're going to do. All right, get these ready. Make sure everything's mixed up well. Now, the recipe says that you can add coffee granules. People say that makes it taste more chocolatey, which we can do. I don't do that because I guess I don't want it more chocolatey. I think it's chocolatey enough. But that is something you can do to add a teaspoon of granulated espresso or coffee, instant coffee. Okay, so we're going to take this out and get all the goodie off of it and put it in our pans. Let's see which way this needs to go. There we go. Just going to eyeball what would be half. All right, we're going to put this in a 350-degree oven until it's done. Now, this is going to be really thick. It's going to make a big layers, thick layers. It's going to be great. So we're going to do that. I saw somewhere where it said to spin it. So we'll see. I'm headed over to the stove. I'm going to put this in a 350-degree oven. I'm going to do that and let it sit for 30 to 35 minutes, and then we'll check it when it's done. Guys, we're ready to make our buttercream frosting, which is so fabulous. So I have the organic butter, and I put 2 sticks in here. Let it soften. I put 2 sticks in here for 5 minutes. All right, now I'm going to slowly add my organic cocoa and then my powdered sugar. So this is, if I don't do it slow, it's going to poof up everywhere, just like my milk did earlier when I made it. So here we go with the cocoa into my butter. All right. Let me turn this off for just a second. Let me turn my watch off. All right. Let's go around to make sure that butter is getting incorporated into that cocoa, the organic cocoa. All right, here we go. Going to turn it on low. I'm going to speed it up later. Okay, there's that. And then we're going to go slowly with our powdered sugar. This is 2 cups of confectioner's sugar or powdered sugar into this mixture, which is 2 sticks of organic softened butter. I whipped that for 5 minutes, and then I added a 1/2 cup of the organic cocoa powder or cacao powder, depending on what you get. I buy mine in bulk and use it. Okay, this is very thick because there's no liquid in here yet. All that's in there is butter, cocoa, and powdered sugar. All right, that's all that's in there. Okay. It's really thick. It's not ready. Okay, let me scrape it down the sides. And the only other things in here are heavy cream and vanilla. Remember our vanilla, the Mexican vanilla that we got? Okay, this is 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And then we're going to go do 3 tablespoons of heavy cream. This is the organic heavy cream. All right. 1, 2, 3. Now, the recipe calls for 3 to 4 tablespoons of heavy cream. So whatever consistency you like, I'd start with 3 and then go from there. Let's see what that looks like. All right, let me check it. Guys, I think I'm going to have to add that other tablespoon of heavy cream. Today, it's not very humid, it's pretty dry, and I think I'm going to have to add the other one. Just depends on the day. Here we go. Okay, meanwhile, we have our 2 layers of cake that I have baked. The sourdough chocolate cake that I baked. And let's put together our cake. All right, let me check this. Oh my goodness. Guys, I'm just telling you. Let me scrape it down one more time. Let me tell you what, in order to scrape it down well, let me take it out. Because a lot of the cocoa is being on the sides. I'm telling you what, I think I'm going to add, I think that I'm just going to have to put another tablespoon of cream in here. That's what I'm going to do. So, let's see. Scrape this. All right. Put it back on the base. And 1 more tablespoon. So I'm going to say, instead of 3, which is what the recipe says, 3 to 5. All right, let's let it go. Okay, boys and girls, that's it. Let's take this lovely frosting off. Out of here, scrape off our sides, and get to work. Here we go. I love my offset spatula. It helps me out. Offset, this is offset. You can buy these at the local stores. I have a big one and a small one, and I love them. Okay, so let's just start in the middle. It's going to make a lot of frosting, so you don't have to be skimpy with it. See how thick that is? I'm glad we added the extra. This is a turntable that I bought, and it really does help me when I get ready to ice cakes. I don't have to keep turning the cake around and around. You don't have to be skimpy in the middle. Sometimes when you make frosting, you know, it's just not enough, but this is plenty. All right, there we go. Now let's do the next layer. Guys, I'm telling you, it's beautiful. Beautiful. All right, here we go. Let's see how far that'll go on the top here. When I make my cakes, I don't try to frost them perfectly. I think there's something about an imperfectly frosted cake that says homemade that appeals to me. All right, let's get our big offset spatula, and let's see what we can do on the sides. All right, here we go. I'm not the best cake decorator, but then who is, right? We're just going to cover it. And we're going to be thankful it's not white, because then it really would be hard to make sure all our chocolate crumbs are not seen, huh? However, here lately people are doing what they call naked cakes, which I kind of like, because it's not so much frosting, and it's okay if you see the crumbs. All right, here we go. I'll go back and pick that up. Man, I'm really glad I added that extra, because I needed it. Because it would have really been too thick without it. All right, let's finish this gap up right here. Don't judge me, guys. It's not going to be perfect, but that's okay. That's okay. Oh, guys, it's so good. Ah! I wish you could be here to taste it. But if you took the class, you tasted it. Or if you follow the recipe, you'll taste it. And this is sourdough. Remember the gut health, all of the good things. Now you could decorate it with sprinkles or chocolate shavings or anything you wanted to. But it's honestly perfect as is. There it is. Sourdough chocolate cake.